Welcome to Redbeard Radio. I'm Brian Keith. We talk a lot here about the journey about when you're in the six figures and how to go hit a million. And occasionally we bring on people who cater to that market of once you've hit a million and you need to grow from there. What do you need to know? What do you need to believe? What do you need to do to move forward? We have on with us today Lana Holmes, a COO to seven-figure companies, who's going to help us understand once you hit that $1 million mark in your gross revenue, how you need to change as an owner to keep on moving with your business. Alana, welcome to Redbeard Radio.
Thank you, Brian. And it's a really an honor. I've listened to a ton of your podcasts, and I'm really deeply impressed with the quality of your content. It's practical, it's pragmatic, it gets straight to the heart of what is needed. So thank you for the privilege of being able to be interviewed and talk to your audience.
Well, I thank you. I'm happy to have you here. And I'm really interested to find out from you, what do you see as people change? Now, you don't take people as clients that are under seven figures. So you have a few tests that you mentioned to me before we started our interview about what someone has to do in order to get in the door to even be considered. But what I'm really curious about is after you do take someone on, let's say someone who they just broke seven figures and they meet all your other criteria and they have to change in some way to be the person to run that $2 million company. What kind of changes are we looking at in that CEO in any aspect of their lives between a million and 2 million?
It's really an excellent question. Um, I, I think the first of the list is the willingness to embrace that it's no longer necessary, nor is it optimal to be the one who does it all. That's the
Mm.
very first thing. They have to be willing to delegate. And in most cases, they've already hired some people and they're performing, up to their expectations. But what begins to happen when you hit that 1 million mark, what you're at that point, you should be making enough profit that you can begin to point that profit back into your business. And then what we would do is we would actually begin to build a foundation that is required to go to that next 2.5 or 3 million. And there's just no one individual is capable of running all the details of that. So the first thing that we work on is the finances. We put the appropriate financial structure in place. We make sure that everything is running optimally. Obviously, our common friend Jen Bro is one of the people we often turn to for that work. And she's excellent. And there are many other people as well that are very capable of putting QuickBooks Online into place. The next thing we look at is we look at security. We go to especially if they're running any type of e-platform, we go in and we optimize their domains, we optimize their security. And then we go through a whole series of other steps. I mean, we just go down the list of the actual infrastructure, all of the departments of the infrastructure. But the actual human being, the person who runs the company, it's time for them to really step up their game. And so a couple of places. One is I would encourage them to begin to become a real student of what it means to be a good leader and what it means to be a really extraordinary CEO. And an extraordinary CEO is one that is willing and committed to leading in such a way that enables their team to reach their optimum objectives and for the company, and to step back and let them experience that. And the challenge of that is that, of course, nobody does it better than I do it. So
Mhm.
that's not the case anymore. There's got to be, and I think one of the topics that I listed was how to hire and how to expect excellence out of every employee, and you'll never have to fire them or you'll never have to dismiss them because employment agreements are agreements. They're agreements to perform. They're agreements to engage. And so that's a whole nother direction we could go. But that ability to hire people and be a leader is extraordinarily important. I would also say, and I'm going to say this as kindly as I can, but they have to have a teachable heart. And what I mean by that is they have to be willing to accept that they don't have all the tools that they need, but they can acquire those tools, and that's why you bring on experts.
Tell us about the ego of a $1 million entrepreneur versus the ego of a $5 million entrepreneur. If you just line up all the people you know in one category versus the other, or the
Yeah.
companies at 5 million that were at 1 million when they started with you and now they're 5 million, what differences would we notice in the ego of those people?
Well, I've never been asked that question, Brian. That's a good
You are the
question.
second person today who says that that's the one thing my guests keep on saying is that I asked experts
Yeah,
questions they had never heard before and forced
that
them to
is,
think about their topics in new ways.
yeah, I love it. Because it stretches me, and I love to be stretched. So right there,
Well,
I'd
there we
say,
go.
there we go. That's one of the, that's one of the character traits. I think the love of learning, the ego.
Well, but
There's a,
specifically different
yeah.
between the 1 million and the 5 million. Are you saying that the 5 million person loves to learn, the 1 million person doesn't, or do they double the already existing level of learning, or what?
I think they sink deeper into the knowing that they don't know it all, and there really is an extraordinary sense of there's an extraordinary sense of humility in great leadership. And it's not that you know what you know, but you also understand that there are experts out there who know as much as you know about your specific expertise. I've got 100,000 hours in operations, so I am really secure in that specific field. And there's a few other areas that I feel highly secure. But I mean, just it was interesting because a couple of days ago, I talked to one of my clients and I said, because he's a musician and we're starting to do contracts with Hollywood. And I said, man, I'm out of my depth on this. I do not have that expertise. And and so we made a plan. It's like I I can't be everything to him in this way. I can run all his other 5 areas of the business, but I can't do that one. So I think as a person who the difference in the skill set is going to be that ability to be a hungry learner and to be humble, but also be secure in what you do know. And the ego, that's a funny word. I think I
Well, I
just
have a
want to,
story for you. I have a
yeah,
story.
yeah. You're
So
going to have
back
to help me with this one. What do you,
so
yeah.
I was in college. I was in college and I was part of this entrepreneurial institute thing. And we got to interview successful alumni. And it was great. And this one guy, I don't remember which company he owned, but he was legit business guy. And he's
Hmm.
there and he's letting these college students ask him questions, right? And I asked him some question, and I don't recall what the question was, but I recall his answer. I don't really know what you mean by that, was his
Hmm.
answer.
That's
And
just,
I
yeah,
was struck. I was struck. Here's this
right.
uber powerful guy that we're all in this U-shaped thing, listening with rapt attention. And there's no what I came away with was, well, this guy is completely intolerant of wasted time. The way he answered my question was basically, kid, ask a better question.
Hmm.
Not really that energy, but it's the idea of he wasn't going to waste time assuming he knew what I was saying. And I've had other people, even also while still at college, where some speakers, I remember that there's this one risk management speaker, and his speech, if you boiled it down, had no content. Not really. He was talking about how cool he was the whole time. There's
Hmm.
nothing useful. But then this other CEO, he just immediately acknowledged his ignorance and asked me to fix it. Like,
Yeah.
what? And I've looked back at that over the years. That was a while ago now, and thought I aspire to be that intolerant of wasted time and to place no ego in pretending that I know what the heck you're talking about.
Yeah, boy, that's a high quality story. That is just
Thank
packed
you.
with,
I
yeah.
cheat. My mom's a professional speaker, former board
Mm,
member of NSA at the national level. So I grew
mhm,
up just being taught how to speak from a professional speaker who put foot on the table by the ability to tell stories.
mhm,
Always
yeah,
cheat, always win. That's one of the Redbeard core values. Not really, but it is one of my mottos: is that you should use whatever your unfair advantage is in an ethical way, but understand what you're particularly good at and then exploit that.
So flipping it back on you, let's use your analogy. A good response for me is, can you tell me more information about what you mean by ego? And what are you looking for, characteristics? Are you looking for values? Are you looking
Yeah.
for, you know?
So one of the things I found, and I've been in business for 10 years, I've worked with a variety of companies. The biggest companies I've worked with have probably been under 3 million.
Mhm,
And so I've worked typically with founders or with heads of marketing at these various firms. And there's this problem of there's an unlimited number of questions coming at the person in charge, and they have to understand how to triage the unlimited amount of information coming at them and unlimited decisions coming at them, and they have to know which questions should they handle themselves versus handing off to someone else. And when they
mhm.
get it wrong, it can be disastrous. I
It
remember
can.
I once had a staff. I had three, 2.5 staff people working for me at the time, and I had a big client. And I trained up my staff people. I thought, okay, I got it figured out. Got them certified in Infusionsoft. We're good to go. And I handed a project to each of these two of my full time staff people. This was back in like 2014, and I thought I understood the project. I thought I trained my staff well enough, and I thought it was clear how to do these things at a high level. I proceeded to pay attention to a third project for the same client and to be working with other clients. And I did not spend enough time checking over the work day to day or even week to week of what my staff was doing. And I discovered too late
Whoops.
that they were not
Yeah.
performing at a high level,
Mhm,
that maybe if I had been involved daily, even, maybe those people could have performed. But I made the mistake of putting people in a position where they couldn't win. And I did
right.
not understand it until the client said, buy. And I thought, wow,
Wow.
what an utter failure of leadership. This is really hard. But I look at that. And so, in some ways, I wasn't too egotistical because I said, oh, my team, they can handle that. This will be fine. But in other ways, I was like, I trained them. They know what they're doing because I trained them. And
Mhm,
then they fall on their face and I'm like, what's wrong? And then as I look at what the client was saying was wrong, we're like, oh, well, you didn't know to do this, like to my team. Like, you did it that way. Why would you ever do it that way? That doesn't make any sense. And that's this classic failure of leadership
mhm,
where I handed it off and it'll just be taken care of. And
mhm.
in the intervening years, it's now 2022. I can see that, well, that does work sometimes, but more often I've handed off at 10%. Report back to me tomorrow, or send me a loom with your question. Walk me through in video your exact question.
Mhm,
Or, oh, this thing is done. Great. Make me a loom. Show me exactly what you did. Every step, click every single link. Send that video to me. And,
mhm.
and that's way more common than just handing a project to someone.
100%. I mean, in fact, what you just articulated is that's a great teaching and lesson in itself. And so compliments on that, I think. And what you just did is you actually articulated to the employee or the staff person that you're responsible for exactly what success looks like. And so they know if they're doing it this way, then it equals success. And I think
Mhm.
that sometimes we do not spend enough time articulating this is what success will look like if you're doing this. And if this is the outcome, then we're on the right page and we're going in the right direction. But I agree that, I mean, that's the purpose of leadership is to literally oversee or steward someone through a process.
But here's the thing, some of us don't care about being perfect. It took me a long time to figure this out. I have a certain tolerance for ambiguity, and I appear to be
Mm,
in the 99th percentile, which makes me really good at some things and really bad at other things. Some of the people who work on various of my teams love knowing they're right. And I didn't get for years, I did not get for
mm,
years how important this was.
mm,
My sister in law works for me on one of my companies, and she loves knowing what the right answer is. And then she loves doing things right and knowing she did it right. And for
hmm.
years,
That's
I
her
would hand her.
juice. That's where she gets her
It
juice,
is.
right? Yeah.
It is. And I would hand her projects that were not as well defined as she needed to succeed. And then I would wonder why they didn't have progress made on them in the time frame that I wanted or whatever. And now that I really understand what she needs, I can say, here's the exact kind of report I'm looking for. And then she can say either I can or I can't do that. And here's when I can or can't do it by. Or I'll say, here's the outcome that I want. what's the process? Like I'm better, but it took me a decade of trying to grasp that, oh right, I'm weird. She's normal, relatively speaking. And really in anyways, it's my problem. It's my problem to design an environment that she wants to play in. And if that environment, if
I
she's not
agree.
playing well, it's because I didn't build the environment right. And it's not her job to tell me my environment's broken because she might not even know. It's my job to understand that this environment design that I've built, but then I might have someone else working for me and their preferred environment is high ambiguity. If I say, here's a problem, they say, got it, and they go fix it and they're happy. Like unrestrained warfare against this problem. Fantastic. And they're lit up. Whereas my sister-in-law would be like, this is the whole worst thing in the world. Why did you do
Right,
this to me?
right. Well, I think what you're talking about is circling back around to your original question of the difference between the six and seven figure leaders. And I will guarantee you the seven figure leader has found at least one individual, possibly two, who he can count on and who he has worked with long enough that he knows their leadership style, and he can hand off a significant number of his decision making processes to those individuals. And I do believe that the ability to delegate effectively and to set really clear and understandable, objectives, that's critical. And the ability to release it, and then to have those check-ins and those times coming back around. But people are going to fail, and you've given some good examples of failure and the benefits of the failure because you learn from them, right? So you
But it
understand the
hurts so
need for
much.
creating. Yeah,
It was
but
embarrassing.
yeah, but
My
that's part of
ego.
the journey. That's part of the journey. I mean, if I could have a dime for every time I've been embarrassed or failed, I mean, it's just part of the journey, and it's okay. It's like pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going. And in some cases, it's going to cost you a very high price. In the case of you lost a client, that's
Yeah.
pretty significant.
I listened though, because the pain
Yeah.
was great. I listened, and the times where I've had to look at maybe being legally like legal action with clients who weren't paying me what they'd agreed to, and I had to
Hmm.
look at, well, why, how did I get in this situation?
Right.
Because it's
Right.
not like last time. Because the last time I never got in that kind of situation again, whether it was the client or the compensation style, whatever the problem was. It's only happened a few
Well,
times in a decade, but I pay a lot of attention. Like, am I seriously looking at getting lawyers involved? I never want to be in this position again. So let's not do this.
yeah. Well, Brian, I'd like to circle back around and say the very thing that you're talking about, you're answering your own question that you asked me, and I appreciate you doing that, is that you're showing the leadership skills that are needed in that seven-figure individual. The ability to be humble, the ability to look at the self, to take responsibility for all of the parts that are yours and those that are not, and to know where to assess the situation clearly.
Let me ask you a new question as we're coming up towards the end of our time here. When you think about the first 12 months of you working with a new client, what percentage of the work you do is on the human in charge of the company, and what percentage of the work you do is on the company itself, including all the staff?
Oh, well, for me, I would honestly say I usually dive in quickly and try to get systems put in place very rapidly, and I entrust them to people, known entities that I trust. I'm hiring
Uh-huh.
people quickly, and that
So you do what
way,
I
then
do. You do what I do is when you have a new client, you just bring in Jen Bro and you say, just use Jen. Just I don't your
yeah,
books are a mess. Just use Jen. And then Jen
yeah,
comes in and then Jen
yeah.
makes the books better. And then at least my client is getting reliable financial information. That's a fat.
Right, because we can't run. I mean, in most cases, in fact, I'm working with a client right now that it's taken us 2.5 months to clean up just the books, and we're driving blind. I have no idea what's going on in this company, and I'm
Oh
driving
no.
blind. Yeah, it's like amazing, and yet this kid is producing money out his ears. So it's like finances are the number one thing to start with. You got to be able to see where you're going, and that's the only way to do it. But I will say this: after I begin to, I almost always spend at least an hour a week with that individual that I'm the person who hired me, my director, the founder, I almost work at least an hour a week with that individual, and we work on vision, we work on character, and we have really deep, intimate conversations. And obviously that doesn't happen right away, but over time, that's the objective. Why? Because he and I have to be in literally lockstep with, because I am the person who's going to bring his vision into fruition.
Mhm.
That is going to be me. And if I am
Yeah.
not crystal clear, then I am at fault, and I constantly
Yeah.
circle back around with him. So one hour a week is operational, and the other hour is coaching and really just relationship. It's not even coaching. It's like, yeah, I'm constantly learning from these young people all the time. Just amazing stuff. So yeah.
I love it. I Some of my clients, when you have that first sales call, I'll ask them, "What do you want?"
Hmm,
I mean,
hmm.
if you doubled your revenue, would you be happy? What if you doubled your gross, but you didn't change, but you made it the exact same dollar amount of profit? Would you be happy? What if you doubled your revenue, but you increased hours worked by 50%? What if you worked 50% less, but you made exactly as much money, but you doubled your profit? I ask all this at the beginning to try to
Right,
understand
right,
because
right.
people have really different
100%.
motivations.
100%. Those are all excellent questions. And in fact, if the individual who is seeking you isn't asking, or expecting those questions to be answered, I mean, that's right there an example of how you assess the person in front of you, right?
I think a
I
lot of
mean, I'm
people never
asking the
thought to ask.
questions, but they should be expecting those questions to be asked.
But they never thought about it. That
I
one of the
know
things
that.
I ask, how many hours do you currently work a week? And I ask,
Hmm.
how many hours do you want to be working a week? And then I say, what would that mean to you if you made that change?
Right, right,
Most people say, I work 50 to 60 hours a week. Almost
right,
everybody. Some say
right.
40, some say more. But then when I say, how many hours do you want to be working a week? Almost no one says 60 hours a week. I know one guy who does, but most people say 50 or 40 or 30
Right,
or 35.
right.
And I say, okay, so what would that additional 20 hours a week mean for you? What would you do with that time?
Boy,
And
great
then
question.
and then
Yeah.
it's like, okay. And then we now established, okay, so it matters. And often I find
Right.
with clients that we don't work on sales first. We often work on capacity issues first because
Mhm, mhm.
often the founder is overly involved in the delivery of the thing, whatever they're selling. So often it's operations. We
Always,
focus on capacity.
always overly
Well,
involved.
sometimes,
That goes
sometimes,
back to the first thing I said about this whole place of they really perceive they can do it better in many
well,
cases.
my heart surgeon client's the one exception here. Our concierge
Okay,
heart
okay,
nurse
yeah.
really is you're buying access to a heart surgeon. So
Right,
when
right.
he became a client, it was okay. His main thing he's selling, which is one-on-ones with him, capacity is not the problem. He
Mhm,
has very
mhm.
limited time because he's a practicing heart surgeon. But given that limited time, I could sell all of that tomorrow and it would be fine. So that's the one
Right.
case where it was marketing and
Right, I
capacity
agree.
at the same time. But even with him, we're now launching courses where we're saying, okay, how can we take a little bit of Phil's time? And we have a system now, you're going to love this, where I interview Phil and we gather questions from all of social media beforehand. We launched our intro to fasting course. So basic details on fasting, things like how does fasting interact with cholesterol or testosterone, or what time of day should you fast? What should you drink? All kinds of basic questions. Within 1 hour, I interview him on all these questions. Those videos get turned into a course. I manage the team, not Phil. I manage the team getting that turned into a course and developed, and then I sell it. And we're getting into a cycle where we're going to be releasing a new course every week is the plan, where Phil will spend an hour of his life to make the course,
Fabulous.
half hour to review. And this is now both a profit center, but we're also able to help a lot of people because the courses are only 17 bucks, whereas working with a one-on-one is $20,000 a year. So we'll be able to save a lot more lives, literally, and it takes
Literally.
almost none of his time, and it can be systematized. Where does he have an hour and a half a week to spare every week? Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. And that can generate the cash to go continue to hire more people, hire the health coaches, and build the business.
Right, right.
Yeah, I really love that client. I'm having a great time.
Beautiful. That's
So
sounds
Lana,
like a fun time.
I love having meaning to my work. I've worked with clients over the years sometimes where it was about making money, and that was the primary. That was all I really cared about because I wasn't aligned with their mission. And thankfully, I'm now in a place where I work with people that I'm mission aligned with only, and it's great. I hoped I'd get here someday, and I'm here, and it's wonderful. I love it. So, for
Good.
people who have heard what you said and they're making seven figures and they're wondering if they qualify for all your criteria to work with you, where can they go connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm actually kind of hard to find. But yeah, so my clients have to come to me. Obviously, they have to come through to me by someone I know, or has who a former client, or someone who knows me personally. And if they recommend them, then I'll take a meeting. They can actually send me an email at lanaholmes.com. Um, and I'm happy to, you know, receive their email. And I could potentially, we could potentially have a one-on-one coaching call for, talk about their business and where they're going.
Mhm.
So right now, and of course I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on there, but that's about it. That's the only place I am right now. So, and
Great.
because I've reached a point in my journey where I'm pretty content with carrying two or three clients, that's the max. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think my greatest joy is looking and seeing that the world is a better place because I help somebody do their job better than they could ever imagine. So, like you, very similar.
Beautiful. Lana,
The world's a better place.
thank you so much for being on Redbeard Radio.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.